Hello again, welcome to another My Sporting Life from the studios of Sheffield Live TV in association with That's TV. And there'd be no game, certainly no game of football, without those reviled figures, the referees. Well, I've got a particularly reviled man, but actually more celebrated than reviled, with me in the studio today, Sheffield's certainly most illustrious refereeing figure, Mr. Keith Hackett.
Delighted to be here, Alan.
Absolutely delighted to see you again. And this is a little bit different. You get asked a lot about the modern game. You're still involved.
Yes.
You're a critic of refereeing standards, and you praise good refereeing as you see it. But let's go right back. Does anybody grow up wanting to be a football referee? Did you?
Well, no, because I was playing for a local team, and the county FA at the time, run by a guy called Ernest Kangley, made a decision to sort of invite clubs to anoint or appoint a player to take a referee's course. So I took the referee's course. Okay. It was 6 evenings. Totally enjoyed it, in fairness. No intention of refereeing. And then I think Kangley had his finger on the pulse, because I took a phone call at work, and I sort of had to toot up to the office, and it was Kangley here, Hillsborough Boys Club versus Sheffield United Juniors, intake school, Cadman Road, and slammed the phone down. So I had no ability to be able to say, I'm not doing it, mate, I'm playing football or whatever. I hadn't actually got a game that week, and I guess he knew that. And therefore I went out, borrowed a referee's shirt, went to Suggs in town and bought an Ingersoll watch and a whistle, a Thunderer, Acme Thunderer, great big thing compared to modern whistles, and tootled up to intake, found the ground eventually, by public transport, because I didn't have a car, went out, refereed the game, completely lost, came off, and this guy called Len Swallow, I always remember his name, connected with Sheffield United Juniors, came up and said, great game, well done. How long have you been refereeing? And I've gone, this is my first game. And I think he was taken aback.
So it happened by accident then?
He was.
Yeah, and Ernest Kangley was quite a regimental figure.
He was.
And so he's to blame.
He is to blame. And then throughout, in fairness, as he did, he had his finger on the pulse. Occasionally I'd get a call, come round to my office, and the office was at Bullenmouth, and up the stairs into the office thinking, what have I done wrong now? And he'd go, pulled out a report form of a caution. Yeah. Now a yellow card, of course. Yellow and red cards weren't used at that time. And he said, right, Mr. Hackett, why have you put booked? And I'm going, well, I did. I booked the player. He goes, there's no such thing in football. There's a caution and there's a send-off. Yeah. Don't ever put booked again. And that was it.
And I've noticed in the many interviews we've done, you've never referred to bookings, you've only referred to cautions. And you've always referred to the penalty mark rather than the penalty spot and all this. So you see it in your education. For those who don't know, before we proceed with this, Keith is rated in the top 100 list of all-time match officials, referees. He was ran the line. I've written down linesman. You'd now have to say assistant referee for the 1979 FA Cup final. He refereed an FA Cup semi-final, I know well, in 1980, Arsenal v Liverpool, because I visited you in your dressing room kindly. 1981, at the age of 36, which was considered to be young then, you refereed an FA Cup final, in fact 2, because it went to a replay. That was Spurs, Manchester City. FIFA list from 1981, refereed in the European Championships 1988, also the Olympics. Was involved in a 21-man brawl. We'll come to that in the course of the programme. Retired at 49, became referee's manager, so you couldn't have a more senior figure. But take me back to what sort of a footballer you were. What sort of a player you were? Were you any good, and whereabouts did you play?
I played left full-back, and I think left back would be the right terminology. Stay on the bus and don't come out. I played for Crosspool.
Yeah.
So we played close to Hallam Football Club, and we had some enjoyable times. It was more, I think a lot of people forget that grassroots football is more about the social side as well as playing. Of course, it tends now to be more serious. Grassroots football, it's rather than falling out of the pub on a Sunday morning and playing a game, tend now to be fitter, more mobile than in those days. But I spent 12 years at grassroots level before I even sniffed a chance of a semi-professional game. And I was rather lucky because the Northern Premier League was being formed at that time, and I was invited onto the linesman's list, the assistant referees list, and had a couple of seasons before I was elevated into the middle. So, one thing that I always, I think people thought I was mad, but because grassroots football had put me into that higher echelon of the game, then even if I was refereeing, at Wigan, in the Northern Premier League, and Altrincham and other teams, Boston United, I would still on a Sunday morning be refereeing a couple of pub teams. That was important to me, and I carried on with that throughout my career.
Yeah.
So if I occasionally had, I can remember officiating in '88 the opening game between West Germany then and Italy, and in the Euros, and the following Sunday I was two pub teams. I think the Angel against Black Bull Taverners. And I was asked the question, where were you this week? And I sort of I was in Germany, refereeing Germany, Italy. But I didn't see that as an ego. I saw that as a solid challenge.
Yeah.
Because grassroots football at that time, as I no doubt it is now, although there's not so much played, I think, it's still very much a challenge.
Kept you grounded. How did you behave towards referees when you played in your limited playing career? Because, journalists like me, we aspired to play for our local teams or for England, and we soon found out we weren't good enough. What's the next best thing? We talk about it. It could be a similar thing. Next best thing to playing, you're involved, referee. Were you sympathetic to referees as a player or not?
I think we were never going to challenge to win the league or win any cup competition. I think it was more social. Therefore, there was less pressure on the referee. And I think there was a degree of respect.
That's gone?
Well, I think that what I find is that amazing is that someone takes the laws of the game and becomes now a young referee, and they can be faced with a couple of hundred spectators around the perimeter of the pitch on one side, admittedly, with a rope holding them off. One man and a dog was for the first 12 years of my career. You're going to Grace Park, Concord Park, and you mix with colleagues. in those informative years at Concord Park, where I seemed to be on a fairly regular basis, there was a decontam room, no lighting.
Right.
And so when it got, in those winter months, the cute referees would come up to you and say, Keith, either play 5 minutes early, come off early. Why? Then you'll come out with the same clothes. And I can remember a game going on for quite a bit because I'd had an injury, and as I came in, you could hardly see anything. I went in with blue serge trousers, and I came out with brown. I only knew they were brown when I was outside the building with the beaming light. But that was the nature of the game.
Yeah, and sometimes you might have your clothes, all the clothes nicked, so that you've got nothing to go home in.
That's happened. Rarely it's happened. But I can remember on one occasion, I'd refereed at Old Trafford on the Saturday, and I'm not name dropping, but there I'd been at Old Trafford in a full house, and I don't know who they were playing, but the following morning I was refereeing in Concord Park, and what I had was we now had this modern building, and I'm sat there with about 20 referees because a lot of pitches. Guy comes in and throws the ball at me and says, Keith, you're on pitch 1. I knew pitch 1, shortest walk, straight out, onto pitch 1, blow the whistle, get the teams together, start the game. 20 minutes into the game, there's a referee comes to the touchline holding a ball, a couple of flags, And I've gone, great, he can run me one line.
Yeah.
The next stoppage, I go up to him and say, look, I'm just about to say, will you run me a line? When he said, what pitch are you on? I said, well, I'm pitch 1. This is pitch 3, they've changed the numbers, mate. So I was actually refereeing the wrong game. Went, oops, and go and find another pitch.
All right. I mean, you know, as you say, it keeps you grounded, and there must have been times as your refereeing career got established, and of course you become more high profile through television and the media, when players would do a double take on a Sunday morning. What are you doing here?
Yeah.
Did you find that earned you more respect, or was there sometimes maybe a tendency to think he might think he's a famous referee? I'm going to show him. Well, which way did it work?
You certainly got that, but rarely did you get it.
Yeah.
I think that look, you blew the whistle, you had a game to referee, and it was challenging because you had no linesman.
Yeah.
So you had to concentrate on the game and you had to put a shift in.
Yeah.
But for me, that was better than training on your own, running around a football field at Thorncliffe at 7 o'clock in the morning trying to keep fit. But it was a challenge, but it was an enjoyable challenge. And you got to know players because you were refereeing teams on a regular basis. And sometimes I can remember, Blackpool Taverners writing into the Greenan, and somebody ringing me up and said, "Have you bought the Greenan this week?" And I go, "No," because you're in it. Blackpool Taverners have mentioned you and praised your performance. Oh. And I thought, well, that's pretty nice.
Yeah.
So in a way, I think you form relationships. You see many players now all aging. We're all getting old. But I bump into them occasionally in Meadowhall, and we chat about those days.
It's interesting because you and I recently have been to the funeral of Uriah Rennie, who was a great friend and colleague of yours. And there was that great story. Yuri was a guy who remained grounded and humble,
absolutely,
regardless of his refereeing fame. And his partner told a great story about how, when she was out with Yuri, they'd always bump into people who knew him. And she said that on one occasion, there were 3 guys across the other side of the road waving to him, thumbs up and everything. And he crossed the road and they all gave him a hug and 10 minutes chat. And Yuri came back to his partner, who said, well, who was that? Oh, she said, 3 guys I put in prison. But it was a magistrate, which is incredible, isn't it? So you could have sent people off and whatever, and sometime later that you're having a friendly chat.
Well, I mean, sometimes you would actually see them back on a football field.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was a loss of respect, but I think those things happened. I mean, one of the things that happened, I was refereeing at Norwich Ipswich, and I suddenly turned and Mitch Diavri, the Ipswich player, was laid out gurgling. And I got to him, stopped the game immediately, and he was struggling. Now, he'd got a blocked passage. He hadn't quite swallowed his tongue. And I bent over him and thrust my fingers into his mouth. I'd taken a first aid course.
Right.
And, I'm not supposed, I suppose you wouldn't do it now, but freed him up. And then we got him on a stretcher and he went to the hospital. And a week later, that player, South African player, rang and thanked me, and I thought, what a nice touch. I'd just done it as part and parcel of refereeing and done it instinctively.
Do referees now take first aid courses? Or
I don't know. I mean, if you're refereeing at Grace Park, Concord Park, or wherever, I think it helps that you've got a little bit of knowledge. You're not a medic. You're not. But I do think it gives you that opportunity. Yeah. To be that first line caller that says the game stopped.
And what this also does is shame the level of faking of injury, and which is the most dangerous thing players can do. Go down, holding their heads, there's been no contact there. It's absolutely shameful in the game now, and possibly something that you didn't see earlier in your career.
I can remember on one occasion, and it was one occasion, I was running the line at Derby County, and you had to go into the dressing rooms to check the studs of the players. And I went in to Derby County, into the away team's dressing room. Franny Lee, I think, was playing for Derby County, if I'm not mistaken. Might have got that wrong. But the immediate thing is, watch out for Franny Lee. He dives. Don't stick your flag up and be conned by him.
He won a lot of penalties in that time.
Yeah, and you suddenly go, wow, that's amazing. Now, of course, I think this is the real problem to some degree for the modern referee, and that is the forensic examination. And I do that. There's sometimes I've gone, that's not a penalty kick. Yeah. You then see it, and you go, that is a penalty kick.
Yeah.
And you suddenly go, you know. And what I try to do is actually say it's a penalty kick. The referee's got it wrong. Mm. I then, given the words, try to say, why has he got it wrong?
Yeah.
And often the referee's too close, and therefore his only vision is on waist down because he's gone in too close rather than the whole of the body, and he's missed the upper body foul.
Yeah.
You know, so I think modern refereeing is more difficult, but that's why I played a part in refereeing becoming professional.
Yes.
To improve their fitness, their mobility, and you know, the process of a referee is to see, recognise, think and act. Yeah. And if you don't see, you don't put the motivation in, the movement and profiling, then you're in trouble. And you know, you mentioned Uriah Rennie, probably one of the fittest referees. That's why he was making good decisions. And the same for Howard Webb. Howard Webb was also a very fit referee who got himself into great positions and was a great referee from this area.
So who you mentored, and you know, to the very, very top of the game. And we'll come to some of the innovations in a little while that you brought into refereeing. But I just want to talk about your career.
Yes.
You might have regarded it as meteoric, but I mean, you were 32 or 33, I think, by the time you made the Football League, and referees are coming through a lot younger than that now,
yes.
Probably yes. Rightly. But could you have imagined in your wildest dreams that you'd be refereeing an FA Cup semi-final at Hillsborough, going to Wembley, refereeing international competitions? What did you aspire to, realistically?
Well, I think that I always took the view the next game was the important one. Yeah. I think as referees, when we took you know, every year we sat down for the whole day watching the FA Cup final, and we suddenly looked at the referees. And of course, in that era, before me, it was usually the referee, and it's his final game of his career, and that's obviously shifted now. But I was absolutely gobsmacked when I got the phone call to say you're refereeing at Hillsborough, Arsenal, Liverpool, and I've gone, wow, this is the team I support. This is a youngster, and I was young. I watched Derek Dooley, my hero, and I've gone, wow, you know. And we used to walk. I lived at Parkwood Springs, probably 3 miles to Hillsborough, something in that order. And my dad and I and my brother sometimes, we would walk to Hillsborough, stop at the pub on the way. My dad would have 2 or 3 pints. He never had one, and steel worker by profession. And then I'd have a bottle of orange and we walk through. So when I got that appointment, I was over the moon and couldn't wait for it to happen. It was some weeks away. And what I did was I had a company car. I was a sales manager then. I drove to Parkwood Springs, raced to the ground apart from the ski track, parked the car up at great risk, and took my bag out the car and walked to the stadium.
You recreated?
I recreated my childhood. And then I can remember running down the tunnel as though it was yesterday, elated with the fact that all of a sudden I was out in the middle, and I was looking towards the Kop, where I used to stand at the front of the Kop. And that in itself was one of the games that I'll never forget.
Even though it was a 0-0 draw.
It was a 0-0 boring draw, and it went on to draw again because I had the replay, and then eventually Pat Partridge had the second replay. But I didn't expect to get that. And then when I got the call around March, I think it was, Mr. Hackett, you're appointed senior linesman, assistant referee to the FA Cup final, Manchester United Arsenal. And
which was a great final, wasn't it?
Well, it was one that, you know, I hadn't run the line for a bit.
Right.
So all of a sudden, I'm appearing at Stocksbridge and at other grounds, running the line, and people going, what's he doing here? He's been demoted. But in effect, I needed to get... And I remember that 79, everybody will think they'd call it the 5-minute final. But the thing I remember most was suddenly giving the direction of a throw-in and the flag slipping straight out of my hand and finishing up about 5 yards down the line, and I've gone, then go and fetch it. So those are the things you see. That you remember the negatives, you remember the positives.
Things that go wrong.
Yeah.
Before we carry on, and the wonderful highlight that you had of refereeing at Wembley, FA Cup final twice, because that went to replay. Other things where you thought, oh my word, what have I done? You know, do you get haunted by them? Because look, by the nature of it, you're going to make mistakes throughout your career, aren't you?
Yeah.
Inevitably.
They stick. I mean, I smiled last year before, when the IFAB suddenly said that if the ball strikes the referee, it's a drop ball. And people were asking me, well, why do you make that change? And I hark back to refereeing Freshfield against Stocksbridge at Freshfield. And they had a big centre forward that eventually went to Grimsby Town, Stocksbridge. And now I'm on the edge of the penalty area, and the winger's goes past me fairly quick, and then he suddenly turns and crosses the ball into what's going to be a packed penalty area. It deflects off me and goes to Gordon Walker, who just taps it into the back of the net. It was a wonderful assist, and the embarrassment, I could feel it, and the comments were cutting. And even at the end, people were coming up and saying, well done, ref, you made a great 12th man. Those are the things that happen in refereeing. You don't want them to happen, but they do. No.
And you were powerless to disallow that goal.
Absolutely, within the laws of the game.
But now, you would and could.
The one that stands out most, to be honest with you, is the FA Cup semi-final after all the cup finals. So I'm jumping ahead. When I was appointed to referee Nottingham Forest against West Ham.
Of course,
And obviously, in that game, I can tell you, I sent Tony Gale off for the denial of an obvious goal-scoring opportunity. If that had happened on the Wednesday before or the Saturday before, I would have awarded a free kick only. There was a foul. There was no malice. No. But we'd been called to a meeting on the Thursday before that FA Cup semi-final to Coventry, and we were shown clips. And up to that particular point, our interpretation was cynical. We were going on a game, FA Cup final, refereed by the great George Courtney, and I think it was Willie Young cynically brought somebody down. And
going through the middle,
nothing happened. And I think that was the stimulus for that change in law. And we there Thursday, we up to that point all the referees had interpreted it got to be a cynical challenge. There's not many of those in a game then.
And it also had to be denial of a goal-scoring opportunity.
So here we had Tony Gale, Crosby in possession, Tony Gale and heading for goal, albeit down the left wing.
Down the side,
but he's in possession of the ball. Tony Gale fouls him. Small foul. Crosby's gone to the ball, ground, lost the ball, and I've gone, wow, he's going. Complete man. Not on the field of play, there was a shock. And what I was amazed about was the fact that nobody had been informed. The players, the management, the media, that there'd been a change in interpretation of that particular law. So I was absolutely Aunt Sally. And then afterwards started receiving the death threats over the phone at work and at home because, I'd ruined the game. And it was no question that the game went down to 10 men and it was ruined as a spectacle. Hence, I always felt as a referee comfortable that I'm going to stick with players on the pitch rather than actually dismiss them. There's got to be a proactive approach to prevent.
So all of a sudden, it's not just you making what was regarded as a controversial call. It degenerates to you receiving death threats.
Absolutely.
What, more than one?
Oh, absolutely.
How did you receive them? There was no social media. There was no social media.
The wife on occasions received them and picked the phone up and would put the phone down.
People
not answer it.
Ringing you up.
Oh yeah, I mean it's amazing how people get to know your number and all that goes with it. So there was 4 or 5 days of mayhem, but even still, when you go on social media, you get those comments. They still are back to those period time of that particular change in law.
The song of West Ham fans ever since, if the referee they think is not doing a good job, it's "Are you Hackett in disguise?"
Correct, absolutely.
Which you would have heard with your own ears.
Well, I mean, I've obviously thereafter been to boss of the PGMOL, been there and watched and listened to that with a smile on my face, because usually the camera beams onto you and you're the guy that's caused the problem.
But there's a serious side to...
Yeah, I think the serious side was that I would, within my scope of any power that I might have, and as a position of a senior referee, I would always communicate with anyone about the laws of the game and the interpretation. And so I was then in the early years, informative years of You Are the Ref with artist Paul Trevelyan, where people wrote in the Shoot magazine and then the Guardian asking questions about the laws, and I would answer them and Paul would do the sketches. And I did that not for the money, I did it really for the information.
Education.
And education of fans. I still do that today on social media.
Yes, you do. And you have to put up with some, shall we say, muppets who have never read the laws of the game, don't know the laws of the game, and they accuse you of not knowing them.
Yeah.
And here's you, and it's, you know, which is, I mean, you could regard it as amusing, or you could regard it as highly irritating.
Well, I find it a challenge, and therefore what I tend to do now is say, if you go to www.theifab.com, you can download the laws of the game and have a read.
Yeah.
I don't get into a long-worded challenge, but some people I do, because I think, you know, in the position that individual might have, then you want to communicate further. And I'll sort of, here's my email, let's have an exchange.
Oh, there's some reasonable people out there asking some reasonable questions.
Sure.
But, you know, had there been social media in your day, in the middle, I think you'd have probably found it very, very daunting. And you'd hope that the current crop of referees don't go anywhere near it. But I'm sure that they do have a look.
I remember Jack Taylor, I ran him the line at Leeds Arsenal. And I said to him, you know, do you read the newspapers? Absolutely not. And you, young man, do not read the papers. I mean, I still read the Greener.
Yeah.
Because that was the paper that we all, you know, it was a brilliant newspaper. And therefore, in that sense, I would still read it. But I wouldn't lose any sleep. You know, this is not arrogance. This has to be confidence, and it can easily slip in. If I think, you know, if there's criticism, I'm going to examine the laws of the game. I'm going to look again at the incident. You know, I mean, I was asked to look at an incident in the game last night between England ladies against Wales, and there was a penalty kick awarded, and I was asked to review it.
Yeah.
And we started off I explained, look, the challenge is on the line. The line is part of the penalty area. But then when I was asked a secondary question, do you think it's a foul? And you have another look, there's no contact.
No.
So it's not a foul. Now, so, you know, if you're refereeing that game, if I was refereeing that game, I've got it wrong, haven't I?
Yeah.
If the penalty kick's awarded. So, what, you know, I think that, you know, the whole aspect of refereeing now is forensic examination of the big decisions. But what against that, what we have to recognise is, and at times move on, we can, you know, I've discussed with Sir Tom Finney and Nat Lofthouse, their £7, maybe an extra £3 bonus in the boot and whatever, but that's the most they earned. And, you know, for that FA Cup final and the replay, I got £35. So it puts it into perspective. But the whole aspect of going professional was the pass-back law for me had changed the game. And the game was changing, it was getting quicker, the demands on training were more, and I'd lost 2 jobs. And you know, on one occasion, I saved my job because I was appointed to referee Stuttgart versus Feyenoord. UEFA said, look, we want a really experienced senior referee on this match, there's a lot of problems, mainly with fans, not with players. We want you in and around it in case it has to be, you know, the players have to be taken off and all those sort of things. And for me to do that game, I went to the boss and said, look, I need a...
You were a sales executive,
Yeah.
and you went to your boss to say, I need some time off to...
Yeah, I need 3 days of my holiday. And he said no.
Right.
And I've gone... and having lost one job... I'm
previously, you'd lost a previous
for refereeing,
job.
I refereed New Zealand, Australia, and lost my job because of that.
Right.
And I've been with that company 17 years and moved it from a 3 million turnover to 107 million. So it doesn't show that you've got a job for life.
No.
So the pressures were not on refereeing, the pressures were on getting time off. And as a result of that, the only way I could referee that match and not end my international career was to charter my own aircraft.
Right.
And what people don't realise...
So that you didn't have the time off that you were asking for.
So I chartered an aircraft that was going to fly into Germany. I was going to be taken to the airport immediately after the game, got dispensation from UEFA to do that, and then fly back for a board meeting, 10 o'clock the following morning.
Wow. And which would have put you out of pocket possibly, because you weren't doing that on expenses.
My house cost me $3,500 at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the support that I got from my family.
So
do it.
You were paying more than you were receiving to referee a European game. Is that fair?
Well, we didn't get a fee.
You didn't get a fee?
We didn't get a fee for European games.
Oh, blimey. So you've got the charter cost of the aircraft.
Well, I had the charter cost and obviously lost time as it happened. I had the agreement with the company. If I did have time off, it was either holiday or unpaid leave. But I rarely took unpaid leave. One occasion when early in my 81, the boss then, the owner, because it was a private company at that point, it went public, but when it was a private company, the owner was brilliant.
Yeah.
Because he's saying, we're getting a lot of kudos out of you appearing on TV and everything. I
should think so.
But the reality was, And then a year later, I don't know whether out of sympathy or not, in fairness, I get a call, you're refereeing in the final, UEFA European Cup final, Real Madrid against somebody, can't remember. And I went and asked the same question again, no, absolutely no way.
Right.
And at that point then, it's, do you have 2 lost careers and a lack of a pension and trouble paying the mortgage maybe, I don't know, or do you just go for the glory and take the match? Football doesn't give you any benefit in making that.
So you took the gamble, go for the glory.
I went the other way. I went the other way. I'd effectively lost one job. I'd now exposed and paid for the aircraft trip, and reluctantly I said to UEFA, I'm really sorry, I'd love to do the match, but I can't get time off work.
No, because your mortgage.
And that was the foundation when I started having conversations when the Premier League was formed with Sir Dave Richards and Graham McCrell about moving towards professional refereeing. I mean, I was 94, 95, I finished. Yeah. But that was the point at which I wanted to move in that direction.
You were heavily involved in that, the introduction of communication kits, which are now considered standard, goal line technology as well. But let's go and have a sort of a flashback or two, a highlight from 1981 and the remarkable replayed FA Cup final between Tottenham and Manchester City, which was your Wembley. You thought it was a one-off, and suddenly you get the game twice.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, I was down on the Friday morning, stayed overnight at the White's Hotel on Bayswater Road, driven in Daimler cars to Wembley Stadium. And went out and refereed a football match. There's a massive build-up to it. It's about 6 weeks, and of course on the day you get to the ground about 9:30, 10 o'clock. You've got broadcast. I can remember being interviewed by Pete Murray. That's going back, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then moving around the stadium, getting a feel for it, the geography of it, the wonderful turf, and met Margaret Thatcher and her husband, and we had quite an in-depth conversation because Dennis Thatcher was actually a rugby union referee, qualified.
He?
So we had that synergy in the discussion. Just as I'm about to go out to referee that match, there's a knock on the door and the FA guy comes in, blazer and all, and says, right, you've got your first decision to make, Keith. And I'm going, oh, right, fine, what is it? You've got to decide whether it's a £35 match fee or a gold medal.
Not both.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And of course that game, Tommy Hutchinson scored both goals for each team.
Goal. Yeah.
And we finished 1-1 draw. None of us, I think, knew what was going to happen. So as I was walking up the steps, the Queen Mother was there, and I'm thinking, if I'm given the medal, I'm not going to get the replay. So say hello and walk past, didn't get the medal, beam, go to the bottom of the steps, and Reg Payne said, Thursday night, the replay.
And it's yours.
Can you get down in the day? We'll give you accommodation overnight and referee the football match.
Yeah.
And of course, I think the great thing about that final isn't my performance as a referee, because that goes into the background. The reality is that everybody remembers it, one, because of a penalty. I think it was the first penalty given in 19 years of FA Cup finals. But the great thing was the Ricky Villa goal.
The Maisie run and a brilliant goal.
Yeah.
Effectively won the game. Yeah.
And it highlights football for me, because I can remember in that first match, Villa was substituted. And I can remember seeing a dejected player walking around, a really dejected player, almost in tears, walking around the perimeter. The entrance to Wembley, of course, was at one end, not down the middle, as it is now on the new Wembley. And I saw this dejected figure, and I've gone, crikey, this is an absolute law for that, LOW for that individual. How unbearable that must be for the player. And then when he came back in the second match to score that winning goal and be totally and utterly elated, suddenly that's football.
And you were on the pitch for it, and you've obviously seen some great players close up, some great moments. By the way, did you get both the match fee and the medal in the end as a result of it going to a replay? So you took the match fee for the first one,
and the cheque,
and you got the gold medal for the second one.
Yes.
Well, brilliant.
Yeah, and I never cashed that cheque.
All right.
I don't know where it is, but I gave it away.
You should have it framed.
Well, I gave it away.
You gave away the cheque?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
But not
for some charity.
But not the gold medal?
Not the gold medal.
No, I should think not. No. I should think not. I mean, that was remarkable. Who are the greatest players? Who's giving you the greatest thrill to be on the football pitch with? There must be a big
You know, that we've got the best seat in the house.
Yeah.
You know, we might be under... I think people say we're under pressure. We're not really. We enjoy the game. If we're pretty efficient at it, it is an enjoyable spectacle. And I think the whole aim... Yes, we're there to apply the laws of the game, but crikey, can referees of the modern age realise that they should keep the game flowing and facilitate the players' skills and allow the game to go? I mean, I watched Chelsea play last night against PSG, and I smiled because here was a referee that I knew. He'd been to as an Australian referee, albeit that his background I think is Middle East, but Australian referee had actually been to our PGMOL when I was boss.
Yeah.
Refereed an academy game very early in his career, but I think that visit to the PGMOL and mixing with the likes of Alzi, Paul and other referees was a great experience, and probably, I hope, acted as a bit of a sort of spur. You're
like a conductor of an orchestra, really. I would say, and you know, sometimes you need possibly to use your baton against the players' heads, and you had an occasion where you might have liked to have done that. That was Manchester United versus Arsenal, 1991 season, 21-man brawl. Now then. Ground, open up and swallow me and get me out of here.
I think the reality is, at the time, I piled in. In reality, I got a phone call the following day from Neil Midgley, former, sadly passed away, but Neil rang and said, Hackett, you shouldn't pile in, you should monitor, and then you can take action. Right. So at the time, I've gone, as it's calmed down, and somebody said it's 16 seconds, but in reality, it felt like minutes. And I've thought to myself, I got a lot of experience at that time, in fairness. Remain calm, talk to yourself. What are you going to do here? And I've gone, he's going. If he goes, he goes. Right. If he goes, he goes. That's 3. Oh, and he's going. That's 4. And I backed off a bit and gone, if it's 1, it could be up to 10.
Yeah.
If I wanted to search out that way. And as a result, I backed off and thought to myself, I'm not sending anybody off. Rightly or wrongly.
Yeah.
I'm not sending anybody off, but what I'm going to do is have a detailed report, and I'm going to have a look at the video, and I'm going to report the incident.
Because it's going there. I mean, I know how difficult it is when a goal is scored and it's X to Y, he crosses it over to that side, and then the goal scored, you've got to describe it and get all the players and the goal scorer. And it's really difficult to rewind the tape.
Yes.
And to accurately, and you've got that problem right in front of your eyes.
And you've got more than one. And then you're suddenly saying, have you seen it accurately? Because again, I've mentioned it earlier, I didn't flash red cards.
No.
If I gave a red card, rarely, if I did give a red card, it was in line with the law and it was accurate. Yeah. There wasn't any seed of doubt in my mind. But here, you would be second guessing, and you sent some off, and some that should have gone, they hadn't sent off.
Yeah.
So we went to a hearing, and it was a very professionally conducted hearing. Jeff Thompson was the chairman, and from this area, and we looked through it. We looked at the video, and of course, there's no VAR, no replays afforded to the referee. What would you have done in this position? I would have sent him off. That's McClare. I would have sent him off. That's another player. And I said, but, what about him? And then what about him? What about the 50-odd thousand spectators as I abandoned the game?
Yeah, yeah.
And they took that into consideration. They were very praiseworthy of how I'd handled it. But I learned some days later that they'd both, for the first time, had been deducted points for the mass confrontation.
Yeah.
But what I did do is you learn from that. If you don't learn from those experiences, referees, when I took over the PGMOL, I decided I'd sit down and try to work a line of criteria of what referees should do in a mass confrontation. And that was, now the assistant referees come in off the touchline. One after the other, so not together, one captures the runners and clocks the runners. So the first thing the referee has to do is, are there any red cards? Then he asks his colleagues, have you seen any red cards? And then having done that, if you've issued red cards, what about the yellows? And, what I saw in 1996, the textbook way in which mass confrontation was dealt with. And this was at the end of the game, 90th minute. It was Arsenal-Chelsea. Howard Webb, the referee. When both managers came on, he ushered those off. Mourinho and Wenger, he ushered them very efficiently off the field. But then what he did was he gave a red card to either team. The club designated the home club, right, was second. So he's gone the away, off he goes. Next one, off he goes. He then asks his assistants, are there any more? And I think Angela Bahor, I might be wrong here, but there was a player that had gone OTT, so he gave a third red card, and then he gave both captains a yellow. And I sat there watching that thinking, this is the textbook, and I've used that 96 minute, when it all ended, as a good learning point to young referees around the world.
I'm sure we could go on for a lot longer, but I would finally, I thank you for your time,
Pleasure.
Keith, and it's been fascinating to listen to you. But final question would be, what advice would you give, and I dare say you're asked this question all the time, to any youngster who says, well, I'd like to be a referee. there's an awful lot of deterrence, to becoming a referee. The abuse you might get, you've got to have a thick skin. What advice do you commonly give when you're asked that question?
Well, I am often asked the question. I go, well, I'm a guy who's been to 100 countries, and I've refereed in 35, and I've refereed a cup final, and I've refereed a European Championship final. Injured, didn't get to the World Cup. But the reality is that is the lifestyle available to you. I would now add, by the way, there are a couple of referees that's earning allegedly $250,000. It's a professional environment. I've watched closely a guy called Ross Joyce. He's on the Football League list, and he's involved with the FA, coaching and educating referees. And there are now the FA doing much more, if you like, working with referees at various levels to help them through that process, because it is a tough introduction, and the challenges are there. A young guy coming out and suddenly faced with a crowd around making decisions. It's not easy, but at the end of it, there is a profession now, of which you can have an enjoyable life. You don't have the challenge of having to go to work. You train, and you have a good career and a good pension.
And you're in a respectable job, which could be equated with, say, a used car salesman or a journalist.
Yeah,
in terms of respectability.
Exactly. And just like a journalist has to call it immediately and make a judgment. It is like a referee, but it is an enjoyable world. I think that we try to make it easier. I've been in the company of colleagues who I've managed over recent hours, and I think we're all slightly bemused and disappointed with the use of VAR and the delivery to the game, how it's impacted on the referee in a negative manner, how it's created, I think, lazy refereeing, how it puts the focus on the decision even more. A lack of understanding that referees are human because they think VAR is going to pull them out of everything. To
go out on that note, here, and detracts from the entertainment. But we could talk about VAR all night, you know that, don't you?
I do.
And we mustn't go there. But above all, referees, in my experience, have a great sense of humour. And they need it. Keith, congratulations on your career, and thanks so much for chatting it over to us.
Delighted.
It's been really good, and we'll be back with another My Sporting Life soon. Thanks ever so much for watching. See you.